The first time Jamie saw her, she was standing in the middle of Route 17 at 3:17 a.m. Jamie slammed the brakes of his delivery van, the tires screeching on the rain-slick asphalt. The girl didn't move. She just stood there in his high beams, wearing a soaked white dress, her dark hair plastered to her face, no shoes, no coat in the November cold. He threw the van into park and jumped out. "Hey, you okay?" The girl lifted her head. Jamie's breath caught. Her eyes were wrong. Not the color, the shape. The lids stretched too wide, the whites too visible all around the irises, like she was perpetually startled, or like something had pulled them open. "I'm looking for my sister," the girl said. Her voice was flat, toneless. "Have you seen her?" Jamie swallowed. "No, it's 3 in the morning. You shouldn't be out here." The girl smiled, not with warmth, with the mechanical stretch of muscles that had forgotten how. "She's about this tall." She held up a hand to her shoulder. Brown hair. She was wearing a blue jacket when she disappeared. A truck's horn blared behind them. Jamie spun around, headlights barreling toward them. When he turned back, the girl was gone. Only her footprints remained, leading not from the roadside, but from the center of the highway, as if she'd been standing there for a long, long time. The police report was 5 years old. Jamie found it online after 3 sleepless nights. Missing person, Lacey Holloway, age 14. Last seen wearing blue jacket, walking home from school. The photo showed a smiling girl with braces. Not the girl on the road, but the resemblance was there. The kicker? Lacey had vanished near Route 17. Jamie drove back to the spot at the same time. 3:17 a.m. The road was empty. No girl. Just the wind howling through the pines. Then his phone rang. Unknown caller. "Did you find her?" It was her voice. The hollow girl. Jamie's fingers tightened on the wheel. Who is this? A wet, clicking sound, like a tongue dragging across teeth. "You'll know where to look. You've always known." The call dropped. In his rearview mirror, something pale flickered between the trees. Watching, waiting. The Holloway home was abandoned now. A rotting farmhouse set back from the road, its windows boarded up. Jamie shouldn't have gone in, but the girl's voice on the phone had dug under his skin. The front door creaked open like it'd been expecting him. Inside, the air smelled of mildew and something sweetly rotten. Jamie's flashlight beam cut through the dark, revealing a child's drawings taped to the walls, all of a tall figure with 2 long arms, a dinner table set for 3, the plates fuzzy with mold, a basement door slightly ajar. From below came a sound like something heavy being dragged. Jamie's phone buzzed. A text from the same unknown number. "She's down here." The basement stairs groaned under his weight. The air grew colder with each step. At the bottom, his light revealed rusted chains bolted to the wall, a mattress stained dark brown, and on the far wall, scratched into the concrete, a single word, "Jamie." His blood turned to ice. He'd never told the girl his name. Behind him, the stairs creaked. Something was coming down. Jamie spun around. The hollow girl stood at the foot of the stairs. But she wasn't alone. Behind her loomed a figure, tall, its limbs too long, its face stretched into a permanent scream. The girl reached back and took its hand with the casual ease of a child holding a parent's. "You do know," she said. Her eyes were black now, fully black. "You just forgot." The figure stepped forward. Its joints popped like firecrackers. Jamie's phone buzzed again. He didn't need to look to know what it said. "We've been waiting for you." The last thing he saw before the lights went out was the girl smiling. Not with her mouth, with her eyes. 2 weeks later, another driver took over Jamie's Route 17 shift. At 3:17 a.m., his brakes squealed as a figure appeared in the road. A man this time, wearing a familiar delivery uniform, his eyes stretched too wide. "Have you seen my sister?" Jamie asked, his voice toneless. "She's about this tall." And behind him, something tall and grinning stepped out of the trees. The cycle continued. The road stayed hungry. And the hollow girl? She was always looking. The delivery van sat abandoned on the shoulder of Route 17, its engine still running, headlights cutting through the pre-dawn fog. The driver's door hung open, the cab empty, except for a spilled coffee pooling on the floor mats. A phone lay on the seat, its screen cracked but still glowing with the last message received. "She's waiting for you in the trees." The woods lining the highway were unnaturally still. No birds sang. No insects chirped. Just the occasional creak of branches rubbing together in the wind. a sound almost like whispering voices if you listen too closely. Inside the Holloway house, the basement door swung gently on its hinges. The chains on the walls jangled softly, though no breeze reached this far underground. The mattress stains had spread since Jamie's visit, the dark patches seeping outward in branching patterns like roots searching for water. On the highway, a new set of footprints appeared in the gravel shoulder. Small, barefoot, leading from the tree line to the center of the road before vanishing abruptly, as if the walker had simply ceased to exist mid-step. In town, the missing persons report for Lacey Holloway remained filed under cold cases in the police department archives. But someone, or something, had added a new photograph to the file. It showed a stretch of Route 17 at night, the double yellow lines gleaming under moonlight. In the center of the frame, barely visible in the shadows at the road's edge, stood two figures holding hands. One small and slight, the other towering and grotesquely elongated. The desk sergeant would swear later he'd never seen that photo before. But when he tried to remove it, he found the image had been somehow printed directly onto the case file folder itself. And no matter how many new folders he transferred the documents to, the picture always reappeared. At the 24-hour diner just off the highway, truckers swapped stories about the ghost girl of Route 17. Most laughed it off as urban legend. But the older drivers, the ones who'd worked this route for decades, would only shake their heads and stir their coffees with grim expressions. "You don't talk about her," one grizzled veteran muttered. "You don't look at her, and if she asks you a question..." He took a long drag of his cigarette. "You damn sure don't answer." Outside, the wind picked up, carrying with it the faint sound of a child's laughter from somewhere out on the dark highway. The truckers fell silent. One of them reached over and slowly turned the diner's open sign to closed. Out on Route 17, the Holloway house's front door creaked open again. The place should have been condemned years ago, but somehow the paperwork always got lost. The inspections always got postponed. The realtor's sign out front had faded to near illegibility, the phone number worn away by weather and time. Not that it mattered. The house wasn't really for sale. It was just waiting. The basement chains rattled again, louder this time. The mattress stains pulsed wetly in the moonlight filtering through the broken windows. And from somewhere deep in the woods behind the house, a new sound joined the night, the distant squeal of brakes. The hollow girl had a new question to ask. The highway stretched empty under the pale glow of pre-dawn, the asphalt still damp from the night's rain. The abandoned delivery van's headlights had finally died, leaving only the intermittent flicker of its hazard lights cutting through the mist. Inside the cab, the radio crackled to life with a burst of static before a child's voice whispered through the speakers. He didn't answer the question. The words hung in the air as the transmission cut out. Outside, the trees lining Route 17 shivered despite the absence of wind. Their branches twisted together, forming a tunnel-like canopy over the road ahead, a passage that hadn't been there yesterday. Down in the Holloway basement, the chains began to rattle in earnest now, their rusty links scraping against concrete in a rhythm that almost sounded like speech. The mattress stains had spread to the floor, forming a dark pool that reflected nothing but the ceiling above it. Then the surface rippled. Something was rising from the stain, first fingertips, then an entire hand pressing up against the liquid surface as if trying to push through from whatever lay beneath. Back at the police station, the desk sergeant finally noticed something strange about the photograph in Lacey Holloway's file. The two figures at the road's edge were no longer standing still. The tall one had turned its head slightly, its elongated neck craning toward the smaller figure. And the child, the sergeant could swear her mouth was open now, as if caught mid-speech. When he reached to shut the folder, the image changed again. The figures were gone. In their place, the photo now showed the abandoned delivery van, its driver's side door hanging open. Something new crouched beside it, a pale shape that might have been human, if not for the way its limbs bent at all the wrong angles. The sergeant slammed the file shut, but the damage was done. The image had burned itself into his retinas. Even with his eyes closed, he could still see it. That hunched figure turning toward the camera, its mouth stretching impossibly wide to reveal row upon row of needle-thin teeth. At the diner, the veteran trucker stubbed out his cigarette with shaking hands. The laughter outside had stopped, replaced by a new sound, the steady tap-tap-tapping of small, bare feet circling the building. None of the men dared look toward the windows. They all knew what they'd see if they did. The pale press of fingertips against glass, the dark smudge of two wide eyes peering in. The Holloway house's front door swung shut with a soft click. Inside, the floorboards creaked under invisible footsteps, moving from room to room. The child's drawings on the walls fluttered, their crude depictions of the tall figure seeming to shift and stretch as the shadows played across them. In the basement, the chain links snapped taut one by one, the bolts holding them to the wall groaning under sudden pressure. The pool of black liquid bulged upward, forming a quivering dome as whatever was beneath pushed harder against the surface. And out on Route 17, where the new tunnel of trees arched over the road, the mist began to thicken. It rolled across the asphalt in slow, purposeful waves, carrying with it the faint but unmistakable scent of damp earth and rotting flowers. Somewhere in that mist, a small figure waited. Her bare feet left no prints on the wet pavement. Her outstretched hand trembled slightly in the cold morning air, and her lips were already forming the question she'd ask the next driver to pass by at 3:17 a.m. The mist thickened into a swirling fog that swallowed the edges of Route 17 whole. The trees lining the highway stood unnaturally still, their branches frozen mid-sway like a paused film. A faint electrical buzz hummed through the air, making fillings ache in teeth and raising the hairs on arms. Inside the Holloway house, the floorboards in the upstairs hallway groaned under sudden weight. Drips of black liquid fell from the ceiling, splattering against the worn wood below. Each drop quivered for a moment before being absorbed into the thirsty floor. The child's drawings on the walls flapped violently, though no wind stirred the stale air. The crayon figures seemed to elongate on the paper, their stick-limbed forms stretching toward the margins. The basement door slammed open with enough force to shake dust from the ceiling. The chains bolted to the walls thrashed like caught snakes, their rattling so loud it could be heard upstairs. The black pool on the floor had grown to cover nearly the entire basement, its surface rippling with the movement of unseen things just beneath. At the police station, the sergeant's coffee cup trembled in its saucer. The photograph had leaked out of the folder entirely now, the image spreading across his desk like spilled ink. He watched in horror as new details emerged. The crouched figure by the van was no longer alone. More shapes crowded the edges of the picture, their elongated limbs intertwined like roots. The sergeant reached for his phone, but the receiver disintegrated into a pile of dead flies when he touched it. The veteran trucker in the diner was the first to notice the change outside. The tapping footsteps had stopped circling, and now approached the entrance with purposeful strides. The glass in the diner's door frosted over in jagged patterns as something breathed against it. One of the younger drivers made the mistake of looking up. His coffee cup slipped from suddenly nerveless fingers when he saw the small, pale hand pressed against the glass. Not a child's hand. Something wearing the shape of a child's hand. The Holloway house's windows shattered outward simultaneously, spraying glass across the overgrown lawn. From the gaping holes, thick tendrils of black mist unspooled into the night, reaching toward Route 17 like seeking fingers. The abandoned delivery van's engine roared to life, its headlights flaring so bright they burned shadows into the pavement. And in the newly formed tunnel of trees, the small figure took her first step forward. Her bare feet left wet prints now, not from rain, but from the black liquid that seeped from her pores. Her mouth opened, and when she spoke, the words came out in a chorus of overlapping voices. Children and adults, male and female, all speaking as one. "Have you seen my family?" The highway shuddered beneath her feet, the trees bent toward her like worshipers. And from the Holloway basement, an answering call rose up, a sound like 100 chains snapping at once. The hunt was beginning again. The hollow girl was no longer just looking, she was calling her family home. The black mist curled across Route 17 like a living thing, swallowing the broken yellow lines whole. The abandoned delivery van's headlights dimmed as the fog thickened, their glow reduced to faint smudges in the swirling darkness. The engine's roar had become something else now, a wet, guttural sound more akin to a starving stomach than machinery. Inside the Holloway house, the walls pulsed. The child's drawings had peeled themselves from the plaster, floating midair as the crayon figures stepped free from their paper confines. Their stick limbs thickened, gaining dimension as they stretched toward the ceiling. The dinner table's moldy plates rattled, the rotten food reanimating into squirming masses that dripped over the edges. The basement door yawned wide, exhaling a breath of freezer-cold air that reeked of turned earth and copper. The black pool's surface bulged violently, something immense pressing upward from below. The chains tore free from the walls with a sound like bones snapping, whipping through the air before disappearing into the roiling darkness. At the police station, the sergeant's scream died in his throat as the photograph consumed his desk, his chair, his uniform. The inky shapes within the image reached out, their elongated fingers brushing his skin with a touch that left frost-bitten trails. His last thought, before the darkness took him, was of the veteran trucker's warning, "You damn sure don't answer." The diner's lights flickered wildly as the temperature plummeted. The young driver who'd glimpsed the hand now clutched his head, his whimpers dissolving into wet gurgles as black liquid seeped from his ears and nostrils. The veteran trucker overturned a table as barricade, his knife shaking in his grip. Outside, the frosted glass cracked in a spiderweb pattern as something leaned its weight against the door. On Route 17, the hollow girl took another step. The asphalt softened beneath her feet, becoming porous as bone. Behind her, the tunnel of trees convulsed, branches knitting together into a gnarled archway. From its depths echoed the sound of dragging footsteps, some light and quick, others heavy enough to make the earth tremble. The van's doors dented inward as something inside grew too large for its metal shell. The headlights winked out. For a breathless moment, silence reigned. Then the screaming began, not from the diner, not from the police station, from every house along Route 17 as sleeping residents bolted upright, their mouths stretching impossibly wide to release cries not their own. Their eyes rolled back, revealing the same inky darkness that now pooled in the Holloway basement. The same darkness that dripped from the hollow girl's fingertips as she raised her hand toward the nearest home. "Found you?" whispered the chorus of voices inside her. The trees bent lower, the mist thickened, and the road itself seemed to inhale, drawing all things toward the waiting archway. The family was nearly whole again, and they were hungry. The black mist coiled around the telephone poles lining Route 17, slithering up the splintered wood like serpents ascending a tree. The wires overhead twitched and spasmed, their copper veins pulsing unnaturally before snapping with showers of blue sparks that smelled of burning hair. The hollow girl's outstretched hand trembled not from fear, but from the sheer effort of containment. The voices inside her skull screamed in discordant harmony, some begging for release, others laughing in jagged, broken tones. Her bare feet sank deeper into the softening asphalt, the road swallowing her ankles like quicksand made of tar and bone fragments. Inside the nearest house, a child sat up in bed. Not the hollow girl, a living child, with flushed cheeks and sleep-crusted eyes. His stuffed bear tumbled to the floor as his small hands rose of their own accord, fingers bending backward until the knuckles kissed the mattress. His mouth opened, his tongue unspooled like a party favor, stretching impossibly long before splitting down the middle with a wet pop. "Mommy?" The child gurgled through a mouthful of black fluid. The bedroom door creaked open. His mother stood silhouetted in the hallway, her neck craned at an angle that should have severed her spine. Her lips peeled back from teeth that had grown too numerous, too sharp. "Time to meet our new neighbors," she rasped in a voice not her own. The veteran trucker's knife clattered to the diner floor as the young driver's head split open like overripe fruit. What emerged wasn't brain matter, but thick ropes of blackened vine that lashed against the ceiling tiles. The other truckers scrambled backward, their boots slipping in the ichor spreading across the linoleum. The diner's windows shattered inward, not from impact, from the sheer pressure of dozens of hands pressing against the glass from outside. Small hands, large hands, hands with too many knuckles, their fingertips leaving smears of something that ate through the remaining panes like acid. The Holloway house's foundation groaned as the basement pool breached its confines. The black liquid surged up the staircase in a glistening wave, carrying with it the broken chains and the remains of the stained mattress. The floating drawings pulsed like living things now, their crude figures stepping fully free of the paper to join the advancing tide. Route 17 itself began to undulate, the asphalt rippling like the skin of a drum. The abandoned delivery van sank into the hungry road, its metal frame screeching as it was crushed by unseen jaws beneath the surface. The tunnel of trees had grown mouths, actual wet-lipped mouths that gaped between the knotholes, their wooden tongues clicking in anticipation. The hollow girl smiled, not with her borrowed face. With the countless other faces bubbling beneath her skin, each one fighting for dominance in the shifting clay of her flesh. The chorus of voices rose to a deafening crescendo as the first house along the highway collapsed inward, its walls folding like origami to reveal the terrified family inside. Their screams lasted only a moment before being swallowed by the hungry dark. The reunion had begun, and the road would feast well tonight. The black mist coiled tighter around the telephone poles, the wood groaning as it began to twist and splinter. The wires overhead thrashed like dying snakes, their frayed ends spitting blue sparks that cast eerie shadows across the buckling asphalt. The hollow girl stood at the center of it all, her bare feet now submerged to the calves in the hungry road. The tar bubbled and hissed around her, releasing a stench of rotting meat and spoiled honey. Inside the nearest house, the transformed mother lurched forward, her elongated fingers clicking against the child's bedroom doorframe. The boy's split tongue lashed the air, his wide eyes rolling back to show the same inky darkness that now pulsed in his mother's mouth. Down the hall, the father's screams cut off abruptly as his jaw unhinged with a wet crack, his vocal cords snapping like overtuned guitar strings. The veteran trucker's boots slipped in the spreading ichor as he scrambled behind the diner counter. His shaking hands found the grease-stained fire extinguisher, the only weapon left. The young driver's vine-riddled corpse twitched on the floor, his hollowed-out skull turning to follow the surviving men's movements with empty sockets. Outside, the pressing hands had multiplied, their fingers now prying at the window frames with terrible patience. The Holloway house gave one final shudder before the roof collapsed inward. The black wave from the basement crashed through the remaining walls, carrying with it the chains that now slithered like metallic eels. The child's drawings had grown to monstrous proportions, their crayon figures lurching forward on two long limbs, their smiling faces stretched into grotesque grins. The dinner table launched itself through the gaping hole where the front door had been, the moldy plates spinning through the air like deadly frisbees. Route 17 buckled completely, the asphalt splitting open to reveal a yawning chasm beneath. From its depths rose shapes, some vaguely human, others impossible geometries of bone and shadow. They moved with terrible purpose toward the nearby houses, their forms shifting like smoke in wind. The hollow girl raised her arms, and the chorus of voices swelled to a deafening roar. "We are coming home!" The telephone poles snapped like matchsticks. The diner's neon sign exploded in a shower of glass and sparks. And in every home along Route 17, the mirrors shattered simultaneously, their shards hovering midair before turning to point outward, toward the road, like compass needles drawn to some terrible north. The family reunion had become a homecoming, and the hollow girl's smile widened further than any human mouth could stretch, splitting her face from ear to ear as the first screams of the newly adopted rose into the night air. The road would indeed feast well tonight, and tomorrow night, and every night after, as the family grew ever larger, ever hungrier, ever more eager to welcome new members into their loving, ravenous embrace. The night air along Route 17 grew thick and heavy, pressing down like a damp blanket as the transformation continued. The telephone poles, now twisted into grotesque spirals, began oozing a thick black sap that sizzled when it hit the broken asphalt. The hollow girl's bare feet were completely submerged now, the hungry road swallowing her up to the knees as she stood motionless at the center of the maelstrom. Inside the nearest house, the boy's split tongue lashed out, wrapping around his mother's distended neck in a grotesque parody of an embrace. His giggles came out in wet bubbles as the black ichor filled his throat. Down the hall, the father's body twitched violently, his bones snapping and reforming as something new took shape inside his skin. The veteran trucker's hands slipped on the fire extinguisher as the young driver's corpse suddenly sat upright, the vines bursting from his skull now reaching toward the ceiling. The remaining men, huddled behind the counter, could only watch in horror as the thing that had been their friend began to change, its flesh bubbling and reforming into something vaguely human-shaped, but utterly wrong in its proportions. Outside the diner, the pressing hands had broken through. The window frames splintered with sounds like gunshots as dozens of elongated fingers curled around the edges, pulling the walls apart like tissue paper. The stench of decay rolled in with the mist, making the men gag as they clutched their makeshift weapons. The Holloway house was gone now, completely consumed by the black wave that continued to spread outward. The chains whipped through the air like striking snakes, embedding themselves in whatever solid surfaces remained. The crayon monsters had grown to towering heights, their waxy skins splitting to reveal pulsating darkness beneath. They moved with jerky, unnatural motions, their too wide smiles stretching further with each step. From the chasm in Route 17, more shapes emerged, some recognizable as former residents of the houses along the road, others impossible amalgamations of flesh and shadow. They moved in unison toward the remaining homes, their forms shifting and merging as they went. The hollow girl's arms remained raised, her split-faced grin widening further as the chorus of voices rose to an ear-splitting crescendo. All are welcome. The hovering mirror shards suddenly shot forward, embedding themselves in walls, trees, and flesh alike. Where they struck, the transformation accelerated, skin blackening, bones elongating, mouths splitting open in silent screams that quickly turned to laughter. The veteran trucker was the last to fall. His fire extinguisher slipped from nerveless fingers as the first shard pierced his chest. He looked down in horror as his skin began to ripple, his bones cracking and reforming beneath the surface. His final thought before the darkness took him was that he should have listened to his own warning. The road feasted well that night, and as dawn approached, the hollow girl finally lowered her arms, her work complete. The family had grown. The hunger had been sated, for now, and in the newly twisted trees along Route 17, fresh buds began to form. Small at first, but growing larger by the minute, each one pulsed rhythmically, like a tiny heartbeat, waiting for the next travelers to pass by at 3:17 a.m., waiting to ask their question, waiting to welcome them home.